Hi, hello everyone. So we're back on doing the podcast. It's been a while since I've done any videos. So today I have Rachel Hall with me. So we've met maybe a couple of months ago now. And Rachel sent me this book. So I'm going to show it to you if you can see it. And this is a book that she's written with some other ladies. So I think there's 9 of you in total, isn't there? And it's called Spiritual Entrepreneurship, Navigating Success with the Soul. So this is a group of ladies that have come together to put this book together. And they all do different sort of jobs or have businesses, if you like. And Rachel is actually a financial advisor. So she shares in here her journey of like a spiritual awakening and how she works now and some of the things that she does. So this book is available on Amazon. So it's really interesting read. Well, I've read all the different ladies' stuff that they've put into the book. So it's their journeys and some of the things that have happened to them is amazing. So you can get it on Amazon. So pop on Amazon and pick it up. Okay, and I'll put the links and everything below. So I'll put the link to the book on there and obviously Rachel's website. So Rachel, would you like to share with us some of the journey that you went through to get to this place, to get onto your spiritual journey? Some of the things that you've been doing. It's quite fascinating looking through what you've put on here on your journey.
Well, I've not really been the sort of child that grew up with psychic abilities or anything like that. So my spiritual awakening, if you can call it that, sort of happened fairly recently, maybe a few years ago.
Okay.
And I think what triggered it was actually the pandemic.
Right.
I mean, I don't know how you felt about the pandemic, but to me, I felt like I was living in a movie. It just, everything seemed so surreal. And I think when the whole world kind of closes and then you're forced to go home,
Yeah.
you get a lot of time to reflect upon things. And then, before the pandemic, as somebody working in financial services, all of our clients used to want to have a big house, a big car. They were all on the hamster wheel. They wanted promotions. They wanted to earn more money. And then what happened is the pandemic forced everybody to go home and have some well-being time. And people started to realize what they were missing out on. So after the pandemic, people started to change. So what I found was that they wanted to downsize. They wanted to move either to the countryside or they wanted to be close to the sea. They wanted to reduce their hours. They wanted to actually earn less. They didn't want promotions. They didn't want responsibilities. Their values changed because they'd been living a different life and now they really valued that time. So I think what it did was it kind of forced me to reflect upon things as well. And at that point, I started to go from just being a financial advisor, advising on products and investments, to then really looking at lifestyle planning. So this is where I would sit with the clients and I would say, oh, look, what's the exit strategy here? Like, when do you want to retire? And then we would start to plan reverse engineering that outcome. And then naturally, I think my work just evolved. So I started to find the product side of things really boring. Like, just, it's a vehicle to get you from A to B. What we need to be doing is helping people to be sovereign and financially free. Yeah. So this is where we were positioning the clients. But so that's how my work kind of evolved. And there's not actually a lot of people in the financial services sector that advise on life planning, unfortunately. They're still in the kind of old 3D archaic financial systems. So my work very much started to change. So there was definitely an evolution there. But what happened was I'd always felt as if I was a bit of a hippie. My parents I was never baptized. My dad was an artist. My mum was actually a civil servant, but they were both very much into Buddhism.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. And so I was raised by quite unconventional parents of their era who wanted me to just choose whatever religion I wanted to be.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to be Buddhist, be Buddhist. If you want to, worship the tooth fairy, you could do that. My parents were very much like that.
Yeah.
So I think in the pandemic, I decided that I wanted to explore, sort of like different types of healing. So
Mhm.
I thought, I want to go and do some Reiki because I don't know what that is. So I'm going to kind of go off and explore. And I went to this lady, and she had done a bit of Reiki on me. I didn't have any kind of like life-shattering kind of experience with it.
Yeah.
But she had mentioned a past life. She said, I found this metallic band around your third eye. And here's me completely green going, is that not Botox? I was like, I think she's a bit over the top. I think it's just Botox, like polluting the atmosphere or something. And she said, oh no, we used to bind your third eye. And that's possibly what it was, but I've cleared it. And I was like, oh. And so I used to have this big memory when I was growing up. And my mum swears to this day, she never put me anywhere that resembled this room. And I always remember running my hand over these green satin sheets. And there was a big mahogany four-poster bed. And I can still remember it to this day. And so I started to realise that this big memory that my mum swears is not a place that we used to live in. I was like, I must have, maybe this is to do with past life, right? So this woman, this Reiki master also did QHHT, which is past life regression. So I thought, I'm going to go back and I'm just going to have a go and see what happens, right? And that was just a very traumatic experience because the session that was meant to last no longer than an hour,
Yeah.
she actually kept me under hypnosis for 4.5 hours.
Yeah. I can't believe that. I see that in here.
Yeah, it was extreme. And she had me doing all kinds of things like remote viewing, and I mean things I didn't even know what that was at the time,
Yeah.
right? And when I came out of that, it was one of my what I know now to be one of my spirit guides actually closed it down.
Yeah.
And I just saw a waterfall of like blue energy coming in, and they took me straight out of it. And that then triggered, I mean, that night when I drove home, I don't even know how I got home safely, really. And looking back, I probably should have reported it, but I just wanted to be, I wanted to forget about it.
Yeah.
But I was just hallucinating prisms. I had double vision. I was hallucinating prisms. I'd been told that is the point at which they'd activated my third eye. And my life was basically not the same after that.
I can imagine. Oh dear. That's terrible. I don't know what else to say. That's just so unethical. Oh wow, I'm lost for words on that one. So how
No.
did things come? How did you move on from that after that experience, or have you moved on from that?
Well, yeah, I mean, you would have thought that it would have put me off Reiki, but it didn't, because a friend of mine's got really beautiful energy about her, and she said, why don't you come and I'll do a bit of Reiki on you? And this was about 6 months later. And when I was lying with, and she's called Jude, when I was lying with Jude and I had my eyes closed, I got like a vision of, like in my mind's eye, of Archangel Michael. And I was like, oh, this is my healing. Like, I know he's in here to kind of help me. And I felt as if I need to follow this Reiki path because I feel like I have to go back to this. So I did actually get attuned.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I started in that kind of place where you're just about to wake up and your mind kind of wakes up and you're, consciously aware, but you haven't really opened your eyes. And then all of a sudden I could hear people in my room who obviously weren't real. They weren't really there.
Yeah.
And it was like one girl was crying her eyes out, and I knew instinctively that she had had a traumatic death.
Mm.
And I didn't know what to do with it. I was like, oh my, like, what do I do? This is really freaking me out. So I tried to brush that off. And then one night, I'd spent all night in a dream with this guy who was just stood there all in white. He looked really confused. And I knew that something had happened to him, and I was doing some sort of heart chakra healing. Like, I don't really know what was going on. Still now, I don't really understand it. And then the next day when I woke up, his face was in my news feed as a missing person.
Wow.
And I knew where he was. I knew he was I could see him surrounded by brown water. And that night, like that later on that afternoon, they found him at the bottom of a river. And I think it was at that point, I'm married to a psychiatrist, so I was like, am I insane? Am I normal? And he was just saying, look, there's nothing wrong with you, but obviously you're having these experiences. I don't understand it. I can't explain it, Rachel. And I knew I had to get like a spiritual coach or somebody who I could have this conversation with, because none of my friends knew what I was talking about. And that was probably like maybe 6 months before I started to channel. So I guess that was kind of like a part of my, I don't know, awakening or journey or something, was that was the way that I was going to be taken down it. And whether I liked it, I was going to be dragged in there kicking or screaming, because that was eventually going to be the thing that I was going to do, is work in spiritual kind of world as well.
Yeah. So there was lots of things you tried as well. So I can see you went into astrology. What else did you do? Akashic record clearing. Done some shadow work as well. You've done working with the masculine and feminine, all those sorts of things. It's led you down a bit of a path, hasn't it? To try and make sense of everything as you're going along.
Well, in my, like, the work that I do is STEM, so it's science, technology, engineering, maths, that kind of industry, right? So my work is all centered around mathematics, financial systems. So everything that I do is evidence-based.
Yeah.
And then you're throwing somebody like me, like I work in like, litigation cases and things like that. So you're taking somebody like me who likes to have evidence based on everything. I work within a regulated sector. And then you're going to just, give me this colossal spiritual awakening and then throw me into a world where nothing is evidence based.
Yeah.
I am going to turn over every single stone that I can.
I can imagine, yeah.
Try and understand what on earth is going on. And that's what I did. Like, I went everywhere. And I did a lot of work, as, like you say, rebalancing the masculine and the feminine. So important, because I realized I'd been sat in so much toxic masculine
Energy, yeah.
Well, that's the industry. Financial services, very misogynistic world to have grown up in as a young 20-something, and I'm now 44 years old. I've seen all of this. I've been part of, well, not part of, but I've been subjected to sexism, maternity discrimination, and I've had that against me. I mean, I've literally weathered every single financial storm in our sector. It's a lot better now, I have to say, but I've extracted myself from the big corporate businesses that probably still have a little bit of that kind of going on. So I now run my own business, so I don't have to be a part of that kind of system anymore. But so I realized, Mrs. Career Woman, you know, I was very cold, but that's because I had to be.
Yeah.
My ego was my armor, and I was a tough talking woman because I had to be when you know, to be able to deal with this industry. I had to cope. So that's what I did.
Yeah.
So the rebalancing of the masculine and the feminine was so important for me. But I think early on, when you just like kind of open up and you take everything in, I had to put myself on what I now describe as being a 3D detox, because I couldn't stand the frequency of social media. I didn't like news either. I hate the news, actually.
Yeah.
So fake as well, a lot of it.
Yeah.
Just narratives, you know. Not necessarily those narratives actually reflect what's even happening in our client investment portfolios. And sometimes they're actually moving in a completely different dynamic to what the news would have you believe.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, that played out with something a bit of work I've been doing with my own mother, right? Who, you know, you turned on the news not that a couple of years ago, and it was telling you about how doom and gloom stock markets were, and she wanted to take all of her money out of her investment. And when I said, "Well, how much have you lost, mother?" she'd actually made quite a large profit because she'd not looked. And so I remember saying, "Wait, you need to switch off the news, because what's happening over here is not necessarily what's going on over there." And so I started to disengage from that. And then as I started to change, I think it started to reveal in me the pieces and the parts of me that I needed to work on and to heal.
Yeah. I get that. You think like when you watch the news and it's all doom and gloom and murder, stabbings, God knows whatever goes on. I don't watch the news and haven't done for many years now. But you never think of it in the financial sector that they're actually misleading people that way as well. That didn't occur to me before until you just said that.
There was
interesting.
At the beginning of my career, there was a fabulous presentation done by an investment fund manager. They've actually got Nobel Prize winning laureates on their panel. And so these guys have really made a significant difference to the world of financial services, you know, groundbreaking research and groundbreaking work. And I went along to one of their seminars, like maybe about 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And they did a whole presentation called Investment Pornography.
Wow.
And it was basically, they were poking fun at financial journalists and how they got things so wrong. There's been, I think at that point in time, there had been 2 fund managers who had consistently outperformed the stock market across their entire career, but only ever 2, and they were both retired. And what they were showing was, you know, you would have a big headline in a Wall Street journal, and then the market would crash the next day.
Right.
It was like, you financial journalists have no idea. And then they did this comparison of 2 stocks, and it was spam versus, I think it was Motorola, when mobile phones first came out.
Yeah.
And they said, which share do you think beat? Like, so everybody was like, oh, well, obviously the tech boom and mobile phones, it's got to be Motorola. I think it was Motorola, it might not have been. But spam actually outperformed mobile phones when they first entered the market. And so it just goes to show that spam wasn't sexy. Mobile phones were. So fund managers wanted to buy mobile phones, but they just didn't want to buy spam. But you would have made more money with your spam shares. And it just goes to show how people's psychology is what, you know, this is what
brainwashed.
Huge difference. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's fascinating, actually. You would never think it, would you? Well, I wouldn't think it. No. Yeah, that's amazing.
So I think I mean, one of the fund managers who'd had an amazing run for he had one of the best performing funds of all time. He was seen to be this big hero guy because he predicted the when the bottom fell out of the property market around about 2008 or something. He actually predicted that, and they did a massive sell-off at that point, and everyone thought he was a hero because he made everyone money. What he actually said was the secret of his success, and this is a guy who looks like Gene Hackman, gets up on the stage, and I'll never forget it. He said, "Switch off the news." And then here I am at the age of 44 or 40, which was a few years ago, going, yeah, actually, there is something in that.
Yeah.
He said, just switch off the news, look at your assets. What do you think they're actually worth? If you were to sell them today, what do you think you'll get for them? Yeah. And this was the advice that he'd been given, that he was giving everyone else. And I think that there is, with mainstream news, there is a narrative, and it causes a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, that once you switch off from it, you take that energy, that low vibration, you remove it from your life. And actually, it doesn't actually affect. In fact, it can have a positive effect around you because you're attracting in, law of attraction.
Yeah, that frequency. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. And we can still do our financial planning and work people towards, but actually looking at what the assets are worth. So what I do is still evidence-based, but now I'm working with energy as well and life planning.
Yeah. Oh, that's really cool. So is all that on your website? Is that how they can find you?
Yeah, so I've got a website, I've got a link tree where people can come in and kind of register their contact details. So I can give you that for the bio. Yeah. And all the work that I do is independent, which means, I don't work for a particular investment company or anything like that. It's all life planning for our clients. So yeah, but I'm now looking at doing something a little bit more where I bring spirituality closer to coaching.
Yeah.
And maybe doing a bit of work like what we've been doing on timelines.
Yeah, that's interesting. Like we said earlier when we had a little chat, we don't think anybody else does this, do we, in the industry? So you're going to be the pioneer for it. You're going to be the one that starts it. So yeah, that's really cool. So I didn't ask you, all these other ladies, did you meet all these on your spiritual journey that are on this book? They all been part of your journey?
Charlotte Saunders, I'm really, really good friends with her. So she is a bookkeeper, but we met through the coaching. We've got we were on the same mastermind together. We used to be coached by a lady called Catherine Morgan, who I talked about in the book. And we both became accredited through her system. And Charlotte and I just hit it off the first day. And we both realised that she has 3 children, I have 2, and two of our children are born on the same day, but not the same year.
Yeah.
And that's really interesting for us because we thought, well, we just know each other from life.
Meant to meet, then it was aligned, if you like. Oh,
yeah.
Cool. So we've been working together for a little while now. So we met through my aunt, wasn't it, basically, through June?
Yeah.
Who's done other podcasts with me. So people that follow this channel will see that I've done some stuff with you. So we talk about some weird stuff on our stuff and the stuff that we've done together. And I guess you knew June before. Did you have healing with her? And
so I met June in Glastonbury when we were both training in Akashic record clearings with Adrian Lee.
Yeah.
And I just loved June. She was just fabulous. And we just hit it off straight away. And she said to me, you need to come into the group with me and Tracy. Yeah. And I was like, okay, I'll just come into the group. Let's just do it,
Yeah, let's just do it. Yeah, I mean, there's some lovely ladies in there, isn't there, in the group that we have. So there will be ladies on here that watch that. that are in our group. We basically do like a healing meditation like once a month, isn't it? We call it Ascension Healing. But it's really lovely. We get to connect. And me and June do it between us. So each month we do different aspects of it. So that's how I met Rachel, through that group. Then I saw that she was doing this book. So that came up, didn't it, on there? So she sent it to me to have a read through. And then we decided to do this podcast on it there. But since then we've moved on, and we've now working together. So she's working with me now, and we're doing, how would you call it, collapsing timelines, I suppose, is one of the things. Finding out about guides as well, and star seeds, what planet we ascend from, where our guides come from. We've been doing a bit of work around Egypt as well, because we both had past lives in Egypt as well. Would you like to say a bit about your past lives, or one that you know a bit about?
Yeah, so it's really interesting because I never really unpacked this in the book. I mean, I was limited on words. I was like, I can't even start on Egypt. I don't know how many timelines I've had in that place. But yeah, so it was, I think that the work that we've been doing is to try and discover how many timelines, so how many past lives that we have running in the negative and in the positive, because the energies from negative timelines can have obviously an effect on the positives, and so on and so forth.
Currently,
and I had a ridiculous number.
Yeah, she did. Honestly, I've never heard of it before.
Wow. But what was really interesting was that I've recently been to Egypt and did obviously this tour of the temples and things like that, and had a huge activation. That's what I would call it, which has triggered certain things and events, and this is where this timeline clearing and the past life clearing that we've obviously embarked upon. But I think it was, when was it? Earlier in the year. And I kept getting like this message coming in all the time of they kept saying order of Sem, order of Sem, order of Sem. And I'm like, what is this order of Sem? Like, what are you trying to tell me? And I was thinking, is it sun, earth, moon? And you know, my thinking brain's like trying to join the dots. And I just couldn't understand it. And then I don't know how it came about, how I found this out, but the Order of Sem were funerary priests in Egypt. And the Sem priests or priestesses, they would always be depicted because they wore leopard print, which I love leopard print. No, I'm not saying, you know, who was that? Who was that woman? Was it Dot Cotton or somebody who used to wear all the
I can picture the face, but I can't remember the name. I know who you mean.
Was it Bet somebody?
A Bet Lynch or something,
Bet
wasn't
Lynch,
it?
that's it. Maybe Bet Lynch was Order of Sem.
You never know.
But yeah, so anyway, after I'd been to Egypt, I found out the Order of Sem were the funerary priests, and that they would always be depicted in leopard print. And it started to kind of slowly make sense to me, especially when you and I spoke to each other, and then you said, oh, I was a funerary priest at Temple of Dendra or in another past life. And I'm thinking, hang on a second, like this is no coincidence here that we've kind of been brought together. And certainly not when I appear in your bedroom.
Yes, she did last week.
Which I didn't know anything about, but I seem to have a bit of a track record with this. So basically, I have two other
traveling. Yeah.
So I have two other friends who we all kind of feel as if we've got past lives together. And I'm starting to think now that it probably is this Sen
Yeah.
priesthood. It's to do with the Temple of Dendera and the Hathors and everything. Because I remember one of my friends saying to me, and both of them are accountants, one of them's a bookkeeper. It's really strange. But one of them said, I saw you in my bedroom last night, Rachel. I was like, okay. And she said, you said to me, just effing do it. And I was like, okay. So I swore at you. And she said, and so I did. I got out of bed and I started to write the chapter of my first book. So I thought, oh, well, that's all right. Then at least that was something good to come of it.
Yeah.
And then my other friend had said to me, it messaged me one morning, went, did you get any sleep last night, Rachel? I was like, well, what do you mean? She said, you were in my bedroom. And I was like, what was I doing? She went, I don't know, you stood there. I was like, okay. And then you'd with, I don't know if you want to tell that story.
Yeah, well, we were chatting about working together and seeing if I can help Rachel unravel some of these past lives and things like that, because I just love it. I love doing it, so it just fascinates me. So we'd agreed, and then I woke up in the night and I just thought, who is this? And I could smell was Egyptian oils, so it wasn't perfume. I knew it was oils, and a part of my brain thought, is this Rachel? And I just thought, but she's telling me she's the mother. And I just thought, oh, just not now. Just not now. Because I used to people materializes in my bedroom and things like that. So it is a bit common occurrence for me. So it's not unusual, but I just think I just need to sleep. And I messaged you the next morning, didn't I? And I said, I think I had your mother in my room. But half of my mind was thinking that this could be Rachel, you know. We think now it probably was you.
Yeah, well, it was really interesting because when I was in Egypt, we visited a perfume shop of the oldest Bedouin family in Cairo. In fact, the grandfather in this family was the personal aromatherapist for George Bush Senior. So
Wow.
quite a, you know,
Yeah.
the quite a,
Knows his stuff.
yeah. And so when we were in there, they sort of lead us into this back room and it's all lined with red velvet. You know, you feel like you're in that Twin Peaks film,
Yeah.
you know, in this little, you know, that place where they go, the red room. I was
Yeah.
like, oh my God, I feel like I'm in it, like, my husband's going, do I need to be here? Because he's very 3D, right? I mean, even on the plane out, he's sat in a seat 4D and I'm in 5D. You honestly, you could make this up. It's hilarious. And anyway, so we're sat in this back room, and what the guy starts to sort of tell us about their family and how they make the blue lotus oils and things like that, because they actually grow it. And they have oils for the different parts of the chakras.
Yeah.
And when you go to the temples, I mean, there's whole hieroglyphics on perfume making. Perfume making was a really big part, I think, of the Egyptian kind of economy, or, you know, whatever, however, you know, it worked for them. But it was a really big part of their lives. And he gave anyway. So obviously I bought all of the chakra oils and I bought papyrus oil, brought them back to the UK, still bottled up. So funnily enough, the first time I bathed in papyrus oil was the night that you saw me in your room.
Yeah, smelling of oils.
So maybe I was just coming in. But the mother thing,
Checking me out, that's what you were doing.
yeah, I was like, are you doing any work? Get some work done.
Oh dear. Yeah, that was amazing. So like we decided to embark on this journey of like unraveling Rachel's past lives and doing some timeline work and stuff like that. So what do you think of what we've done so far? Has some of it resonated? Do you feel that it's helping you in some way to move
Yeah.
forward? It's a bit bizarre, some of this stuff, isn't it?
I mean, I've just given up trying to be normal now, because I'm like, I just don't roll with this normal vibe anymore. You know, I don't get me wrong, I go to work and I'm still sort of firing on all cylinders. If anything, I'm actually doing like a lot more high profile work and working with a lot more high profile people actually. But they're all thriving, we get great results. And then I come off into this world and think, I don't know how I do this. I really have no idea, but it seems to be working out really well for everybody right now. So it is really, really difficult to navigate. And I think that was recurring theme throughout the book is when you have a spiritual awakening and you try and bring your business into alignment, it's really quite a journey that. Because you want to get out of bed on a morning and make sure that you are perfectly in alignment. And sometimes there's a lot of work to do before you can actually get to that point. But I think that, you know, I've came quite far. I've done a lot of healing, like, you know, so I think the work that we are doing now is so important because I think that there was a lot of confusion before. I don't know what other people's journeys are like or what anybody else thinks, but I always talk about a part of my journey, which was like being stuck in a karmic plug hole. And I was receiving a lot of messages. It was so confusing. Like, I just couldn't make head nor tail of, is this actually a guide or am I being given a memory? Is it just ego? Is it because your personality has imprint as well? Like I see it as we are like this kind of being of light, but we're surrounded by like a field of our own consciousness, of our own ego, our personalities. And it's a bit like trying to fight through the jungle to get to what the real essence of us is, of what we are, the almighty I am presence, or however we want to talk about ourselves, or higher consciousness, to get to that place of wisdom versus I'm just going to sit in this big field of energy and talk about how I'm like goddess and a god and I'm this person and that person. And because I think what's really important is that you know who you are in this life. You can't live in other lives because this is the one that we're on now, right? So it's nice to know, you know, we were this fabulous priestess or whatever it was that we were doing. And we probably still do a lot of that work in astral, I think, in like, you know, in the ether or whatever. But we also have to live a normal life on planet Earth. So, you know, does it help or does it hinder? So I think the work that we've done together, Tracy, has been about, let's get rid of, you know, the distortions, some people call them inversions. Let's get rid of all of that, the stories and all of that kind of thing. And let's really get to a really sort of more refined kind of frequency or internal vibration or however people want to describe it. And the work that we do with the timelines is so important because it helps us to fine tune our own frequencies. And it also helps us to ground, even though we may sound totally ungrounded right now.
Like we've lost the plot, yeah.
Do you know what? My husband's a psychiatrist, right? And I've had deep and meaningfuls. I've channeled in front of him and he's gone, I said, am I crazy? And he's like, no, you know, I don't know what's going on, but I've answered some questions that I would never have known the answer to. And he's been quite impressed with that, actually. So he just let me get on with it. But I don't know if I kind of lost my thread there, what I was trying to say. But I think that I think it does help you to ground even if you don't really truly believe in it, right? Even if it's just a placebo effect, there's a lot of psychiatrists that I've spoken to that have said if a placebo effect has a positive impact on your emotional well-being and your mental health, right? I'm not saying we're curing mental illnesses, by the way, that we'll leave that one to the doctors. That's not what we're doing here. We're just talking about well-being and just feeling better. Yeah. So if you have a placebo effect, whether you believe it or not, and you've done that bit of energetic work and it's having a really good effect on who you are right now, then why not? You know, why not do that? Why not just go, well, who cares? Throw
Yeah.
caution to the wind and have a go at it. Because
Yeah.
I felt a lot better since we've started doing that.
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot of confusion out there, and some people don't take it very far. They might just go to the odd spiritualist church, or they might read some cards or do whatever. But when we feel that we've got a bigger mission, which I do think you have on this planet, and you've just been getting so much stuff coming in from different aspects, like once whatever that woman did to you, she completely opened you up. But I mean, when we had a little chat earlier, we think maybe she fragmented some of your timeline. Something's gone a bit array here because there's just been so much confusion going on, just bringing you back down to like getting it all settled in your own self of like what's coming in. So the main thing we did last session was really connect to your guide, wasn't it? And you already knew who she was, didn't you?
Yeah.
It's just having some of this stuff confirmed. You see, like tried to materialize in the living room, so I knew we had to go there, but you know, I mean, that's got to have made a difference in itself, just knowing who your proper guide is to start with.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. So when you take, you know, essentially a bit of a scientist and a bit of a mathematician, and then you go and throw me into the world of spirituality where nothing is evidence-based. Actually, that's not necessarily true because,
Some of it is, but it's
yeah.
hard to get your head round, isn't it? To be
Well,
fair.
actually, I've always loved physics. And if you watch the documentary Atom, that is amazing.
Yeah.
And what you will find is physics is probably, I mean, the physicists get as close to spirituality more than you actually even know.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
if
I
you look at
agree. I
what
watch all
Nicholas
that stuff.
Tesla
Yeah,
said and Einstein, they all said
yeah.
imagination takes you everywhere. It answers or it solves problems that the logical mind maybe does not. So they really value that. And Tesla said everything's sound and vibration as well, didn't
Right.
he? So
Yeah.
actually, even though we are talking about these concepts, physicists, even though they may not have proven it yet, they do believe in quantum entanglement.
Yeah.
They believe in things like string theory. They believe that there are different dimensions where there's different worlds playing out. So, you know, we can poo-poo this all we want, but actually a physicist wouldn't necessarily do that. Thought experiments like Schrodinger's cat, that completely, you know, that an atom only exists when you observe it. Tells you that maybe reality is not the way that you believe it is.
Yeah.
So, you know, we can all go through all of that. I've been there before. I love debating with my husband about it.
Yeah.
But I think when we came back to, you know, sort of moving through all of the distortions and then you helping me to kind of get back together, if you like, with my guide. I think that made a huge difference for me because I realised that the information that was coming via this guide that I've known her now for about maybe 12 months from last year, was actually probably information that I wouldn't know myself, so I wouldn't instinctively know that. So I couldn't have made a lot of it up.
Yeah.
And what I was saying is, you know, as far as evidence-based, I know people who have channeled, you know, when I've spoke to people like yourself, Tracy, or other people have verified in one way, shape or form that I have connections to, not necessarily to her, but to the Pleiades, which is very much my,
Your
I
step
don't know,
family.
yeah, that's who I'm very much connected with. And the Pleiadians, I kind of felt them maybe last year a lot. But then I was like writing it off, like, oh, I'm just mad, I must be mad or something.
Yeah, we all
But then
did
she
it. I did
actually
it as well.
materialized in front of you, didn't she?
Yeah. It was June that actually activated my Arturian guide, my
Wow.
galactic guide. Was a bit of a story there, but I went down to visit and do some healing on Carl, and in that process, I sort of got attachments, and I said to June, "You're gonna have to help me out here. I've got too many attachments. I need them cleared." So we went into the hut and she said, right, you lay down, I'm going to do healing on you, whatever. Didn't even enter either of us heads. So she said, I've got a big job. I thought, okay. And she's pulling all this stuff out of me. And that's when her psychic surgeon come in, fixed my leg from another past life that was playing out in this timeline, all stuff like that. And it went so deep in with the healing and everything that happened to me that I was physically shaking. And then after that, I kept getting this like entity coming to me on my right side, and everything normally comes in the left to me. And I just thought, oh, this energy is too much. It's knocking me off balance all the time. And my guides are saying to me, no, you've got a new guide. I couldn't connect for a while with her. I had to really raise my frequency and my energy. But then I'm like, is this for real? Is this really happening to me? And then, like I said to you earlier, like sometimes you just have to give up and accept that this is what it is. And then everything goes up a level and shifts and changes. So that's why I think it's quite a big thing for you to fully connect to your guide on that Palladian level. It's so like when the stuff comes in, they can vibrate higher, different frequency for you, and you can get more information coming in, stuff that you will help you in your work. And maybe like in your financial work, you could get somebody that say had a bereavement or dealing with bereavement. Does that come into your category of stuff where they have to get their pensions?
Estate planning and inheritance, yeah.
Yeah, so you could get somebody that's really emotional, not with it, not functioning, that type of thing, and you will just automatically, I'm not saying you didn't do this anyway, it's just my theory on it, you will automatically tune into that person's energy, you know exactly what they want, how to deal with them, how to help them move forward. So that's why I think like it will really be beneficial for you to work with your guide more on a one-to-one basis, rather than like all sorts coming in for you, which has been happening, to help you move your work forward and help more people. There's got to be a bigger picture here, isn't there? But they just, not everybody's got one, have they? Probably in the spiritual world, everyone says they've got one, but have they? I don't really know.
It's
People
really
follow themes, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting because I've kind of so I've obviously been, a bit of a researcher, read up a lot about the Pleiades, and fabulous friend of mine who's the most amazing jewelry creatrix, is she channels, she's got a fabulous jewelry maker from New York. She's called 16 Friedrich, and she had, interesting what you say about the mother, firstly, because she had said that I'd had a Syrian embodiment, and I was making mother codes, but they were Alcyon mother codes, which the Alcyon is part of the Pleiadian star system. It's like the central sun. And that I had been basically doing these mother codes or something like that for the Pleiades, for Alcyon mother codes. And she had confirmed that I'd been in Atlantis, I'd worked in the Blue Pyramid of Healing and DNA research.
Yeah.
And that I've been getting memories from Atlantis that very much align with that as well. So I thought, all right, well, I've never shared that with her. So she picked up that connection there. Now, I think it was not that long ago, I started reading up about the Pleiades because I thought, okay, so I want to find out a little bit more about this because this is interesting. And what I found was Alcyon's supposed to be the seat of the Pleiadian government, and their financial systems were all based from Alcyon. And apparently, these people, I mean, who they are, I don't know, but they seem to think that Pleiadians are quite actively involved in the financial systems in this world and have been, well, for centuries. And there have been pivotal moments in my career where, for example, if I go back a few years ago, I was part of an action group It was all to, I'll not go into it, but it was a very technical form of tax that I'd ended up being the country's expert at the time.
I saw that in your book, yeah.
Yeah. And so I was in the right place at the right time on Twitter. There was a big Twitter storm about it. We ended up lobbying the government. This particular type of tax nearly sunk the entire NHS. I mean, there was surgeons cancelling, clinics and the operating theatres, and that was just before the pandemic hit. And we successfully lobbied the government, got the tax change, which then sort of, because the only way that the consultants could avoid paying this tax was earning less money. So that's what they did. So the NHS wasn't as effective as it could have been. But because the tax was so complicated, nobody could really explain it. They just sounded like, oh, there's a bunch of greedy doctors not wanting to pay tax. It wasn't like that. The government changed the tax laws, and then one day everybody who's always been on payroll turns up and they've got £200,000 tax demands through the door. Consultants, one of the country's leading consultants had the bailiffs knocking at his door. Now, that's not fair. That is abusive.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm a straight talking northern woman. I just happened to really understand it, and I could explain it in a very basic way. So not just me, but a load of others, we got together and we successfully lobbied the government and got that tax law changed. And I do sometimes believe you're in the right place at the right time for a particular reason. And I think maybe that was what I was kind of asked to do at that point. Now I'm starting to see it as, when I created the business that I've got, which is 7 stages, it was based around the 7 stages of financial freedom. But what I think other people may or may not know, that was also based on the 7 chakras. When I had my awakening, I used to look at, analyze stock market reports, investment commentaries. Then all of a sudden I was mapping the 7 hermetic laws of the universe against chakras. People would be like, what are you doing, Rachel? I was like, I have no idea, but this makes sense to me. I think I'm channeling. I'm doing this thing called channeling. And then I kind of dropped it and I sat on it for a while. And I've just started to pick it up and started to work with it again, because I'm trying to. So my work is very much based around physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. And I think at the moment, the problem is that we all ignore the spiritual and we work on the other 3 to solve a problem. But because we're leaving the spiritual out, which is essentially the energy, it doesn't have to be religious or whatever. Yeah. So let's change spiritual to energy work, yeah? Because we're not doing all 4 pillars, sometimes the planning falls down. And this is where I just want to thread the spiritual work through, because I just feel it's an important aspect of our growth and development and our well-being.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm kind of going with it now.
Stories around finances, don't they, and wealth that probably need clearing. I think so. Old programs.
Poverty consciousness is one. And again, whether you believe in past lives or not, the meditations and the visualization work is just a really good practice, if not to just try and just change the way that you think, just to change your perspective, just to shift that perception is quite a powerful, people get, quite a powerful result from that. So it's whatever works, know.
Yeah. I found, like we're doing my work, what I call it the witch codes, is going in, and that's like come from past lives, where people that do spiritual work always feel they're going to be persecuted. So there's thing about money, like keeping quiet, not telling people what they're all about, have trouble taking money off people, charging, that type of thing, not charging their worth. So maybe there's an aspect of that, do you think, in what you do as well?
I think that we've all kind of battled against that one. The difficulty with the industry that I've been in is that financial advisors used to hide their fees. And the industry was very much like Wolf of Wall Street. I mean, it was like, it was so corrupt back in the day. But that was before the regulation came in. So the new advisors that are coming in now, they are they're being educated properly, whereas the Wolf of Wall Street days, they weren't educated at all. You know, there was no oversight, there was no compliance, there was no regulation. One of the things that I see problematic with the coaching industry right now is that we have a lot of the financial coaches going, oh, this is amazing work because we're doing the life planning, but they're not actually regulated. So they're given kind of pseudo advice and there's no comeback. So in this really weird way, we've got a bit of a problem with the coaching community because they're kind of bringing some people back to the Wolf of Wall Street days, in my opinion.
Right.
But, you know, that's quite a controversial thing to say, but in reality, you can't complain against somebody who works in an unregulated industry in coaching. So I think our industry has failed people because it's harvested money, gave them contracts, and not really cared about the outcome. So what I'm trying to do here is bring it all together. And I do think that if we can bring people through coaching programs and we can say, this is how you can look after yourself. These are the different stages of financial, stages of financial development, the different stages, the 7 stages of independence. Try and get an idea of when, where you want to be and how much wealth you need to build in order for you to not work anymore.
Yeah.
That's the idea. You don't want to be stuck on the hamster wheel.
No.
But if we can thread into that the ability to educate somebody properly so they can self-manage,
Yeah.
Not everybody needs financial advice. A lot of people just need the basic education of it.
Yeah.
But then help people with the life planning, do that themselves, but then also bring in like the meditations. So we'll refocus the mind. We'll try and get rid of the poverty consciousness. We'll play around with whatever we believe the placebo effect might be for those who was the skeptics. Just give it a try, go with it and see how far you get. Because I think the meditations now are really powerful, especially if we're kind of doing that sort of daily.
Yeah.
Because we're starting to shift ourselves internally.
Yeah, definitely. And quietening the mind down for you to think straight, if you like, even if that's all you do it for. You've got this constant chatter going on all the time, and you I don't know. And perhaps if you are watching the news and you've got all this negativity, or perhaps you're in a relationship that's negative, or something around you, just to be able just to quieten your mind, just have a bit of peace. And you don't have to just sit there doing this, holding your fingers. You can do walking meditations. I do a lot of those. That's how I get all my information. I don't sit there like that unless I'm doing a shamanic type thing, completely different. But otherwise, I go walking in nature down by the sea, which is really good, or in the forest, and it quietens the mind down for you to get your next step in life, or get some clarity on something that you're trying to figure out. Is to quieten the mind, isn't it? So if you've got financial stress going on, or maybe even you've got money and you don't know what to do with it, I mean, that must cause people a bit of a dilemma. I mean, what about the tax man, and what about this? And I expect, not having gone down that route myself, I expect that there's probably lots of things that you would have to think about, which maybe put people off from moving forward and sorting out their finances properly. Do you do with debt management as well? Is that part of what you do? That's completely different subject, isn't it?
I mean, we would, one of the things that we would explore when we are working with our clients is trying to make them obviously financially free.
Yeah.
So financially free is where you're free of debt and financial commitment. So in the beginning stages, I mean, the 7 stages of financial freedom it's not a linear pathway. People start at different times. But stage 2 is always financially overstretched. And this is where maybe at the end of each month you're having to borrow, you've got to go maybe on credit cards and do spending and things like that. They can be really, really difficult cycles to break out of.
Yeah.
But a lot of people get into them because of emotional reasons. So I'll give you a really interesting statistic as well, which I don't think a lot of your kind of listeners will know about this. And that is, I think the research came out of the United States that 70% of lottery winners lose all of their money. And they've done a lot of research trying to find out what the psychology is behind that. Some of it's educational, because they just didn't know how to look after their money. But obviously, you can buy investment expertise and hire, you know, if you're a multimillionaire, you can hire in a team that will do it for you. But what they found was when you go back to, I don't know, caveman eras, we have a tribe. And the tribe is our community and they make us feel safe. And when you are landed with a lot of money, it can change your socio-economic status.
Yeah.
So people lose their communities, they lose friends, and then they can become really miserable and depressed. And so they spend all of their money because they don't like it, because they don't value it.
Yeah.
Because actually you realise that the big house, the big car, jetting around on aeroplanes, you still got to take your mind with you. And if you've not got any friends and you're not surrounded by good people because they're all there because you've got loads of money, it's not a very nice existence. So when we say we want abundance, we don't really want abundance. We want to live an enriched life. It doesn't mean to say we need to be millionaires, because a lot of them are not very happy. Look at Donald Trump. Goodness me. Like, you know, let's not even get started on him, right? But yeah, so money doesn't actually make you happy.
Yeah.
And what we found is that a lot of people are emotional spenders, a bit like emotional eating.
Yeah.
And some people feel like they're not worthy to keep hold of money.
Yeah.
So they give it away. Some people believe that they have to have this status, so they've got to spend, because they're giving, because they've got this status to keep up with. They've got to look like they've got loads of money, so they might go out and they might pay everyone's bill, but really they can't actually afford it. And I did a great presentation when I talked about Johnny Depp's spending habits, because Johnny Depp at one point, I'm sure he became bankrupt. And when you looked at his spending, I mean, this guy was spending £25,000 a month on wine. Your income only goes so far, unless you're like Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos. So it is possible to spend more than you earn, even when you earn hundreds of thousands of pounds. People don't realise this. So what I generally tend to do is I say, design your life. When you get up on a morning, what do you want to do? What you'll probably find is when we put people through an exercise like that, a lot of them have already acquired the level of income that they need to be financially free. They just don't know it.
Yeah. Yeah, makes perfect sense.
So if we resolve these emotional aspects first, and then we actually show people the life that they love within their communities, the beautiful things around them, they then start to realise they can extract themselves from the 3D matrix. They don't need to be on this hamster wheel because they've got what they want. But the problem is social media is constantly firing at people, not enough. You need to be here, but you're not there. You know, you need to be this. You need to look that way. You need to have all this money. You need to be a 6-figure business or a 7-figure business to be or feel like you are valuable and you have self-worth. And I'm here to tell you that that is not true.
Yeah.
That's a narrative and it's false because it doesn't come from you. It's being done to you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, social media's got a bit to answer for, really, hasn't it now? Especially, we all like a little scroll now and again on a bit of Instagram, but I have tried to really, over the last, I don't know, maybe year, really limit as much time that I spend on social media. I do my bit in the morning, my few posts, and that's it. And I really don't go on it that much. Like, I don't go looking at other people's stuff, and I haven't done that for years. Like, how much time can you consume? You go down a rabbit hole with that thing, can't you? By the time you've gone here and there and there and there, and oh, that looks good, and then you can end up on, I think I ended up on what's that site that you buy things on? Begins with E. I've forgotten the name of it now. And you end up on a selling site where you can buy loads of stuff cheaply, come to get shipped over from China. I mean, it's a rabbit hole. If you go
It's like
down
being
there.
in IKEA when you're always leaving with candles and tea lights, and you think, I didn't come here for tea lights.
Really want all this stuff, you know, and that's, oh, that's cheap, I love that. It's terrible. Team I think that's what it's called. Not knocking them, I bet they're perfectly fine. I've ordered off them, but I mean, that's just an example of going on social media. By the time you've finished, you're off on another site buying stuff that you don't really need. I think everyone should really limit. Your brain can't cope with that much information in a period of time. You can't physically do it. So I think it's probably designed to, I don't know, numb the brain, to keep people on a certain level, frequency. And if you're doing that constantly, day in, day out for hours, which I'm sure some people might be doing that, you're not really going to progress very far in life, are you, from doing that sort of stuff? So I think limiting it is a really good idea, like you do the news, and don't read newspapers and all sorts of stuff like that. Keep your mind clear and keep your frequency high, because you do attract, if you're on a low frequency, by looking at, you attract that stuff into your life, don't you, as well? We've all been there and done that in the past. It's like, I was at the gym earlier today, and there's my friend there, made a complete beeline for me to unload all their stuff. And I went, just stay over there. Don't come near me. I heard it all yesterday. I don't need it again today. Stay away from me. I said, you need to up your frequency, mate. You're attracting all this stuff. It's like, Jesus, it was doom and gloom for, well, yesterday I got it all, and I wasn't having it today. It was about like half an hour of it yesterday. I thought, once is enough. You've got to be a friend, don't you, and listen. But Jesus. So yeah, God knows what frequency he is on. Could be picking all that stuff up. So do you advise your people then, like where to go for information that they need when they're looking for their finances or their investments? Do you give them places to go to, or do you just do it for them?
Yeah, so we basically design the plans. So we work collaboratively with people, because obviously it's not a dictatorship. Everybody's different in terms of what they want from their lives and when they envisage just stopping working.
Yeah.
You know, you talk about pensions. Pensions isn't a sexy word, but people really enjoy when you use the word passive income, because that sounds exciting and it sounds entrepreneurial. So, you know, passive income, let's just be honest, passive income is income from an investment. It can be from different assets like lifestyle businesses, but ultimately you're going to want to stop at some point and just have something pay you. So then you have to obviously look at what kind of investment vehicles or assets or products that you can use to create that. So we are obviously the experts. We know what we're doing. So all we need people to do really is to just say, work with us. What do you want from life? How do you want this to unfold? And then we basically design the plan to de-risk them, make sure that the plans are obviously insured and things like that if anything goes wrong, and that they're still building wealth, and then we'll have the mortgage paid off ultimately. So they don't have to be, you know, in your 70s and still running an interest-only mortgage is not a good place to be.
Yeah.
So that's what we're doing. But you're right, I mean, the frequency is very low in terms of what's going on the news, but tuning out and tuning into yourself. But the investment companies, they're analysing the stocks and the shares and the markets every day. They're already pricing in what's going on in Ukraine into the shares, and all of that's already being de-risked. It's already in the portfolios themselves. People don't realise that. So, you know, it is good to have an awareness of what's happening. Obviously, we need to know about legislation because that affects our clients as part of the planning process. So we do that. All of that's already done. And part of, you know, I can't disconnect from that aspect of the world because that's part and parcel of everything that I do. And I love it. I do actually really enjoy that part. But I think it's really important that we take the strain and then allow everybody else to kind of sit back and just have a little bit of peace of mind that you know, where they want to be in the future is where they're going to end up.
Yeah.
The problem I see with the spiritual community is, like you say, Tracy, a lot of them have got, I think it's also about the rebalancing. It's somewhat of the masculine and the feminine.
Mm.
It's wounded feminine and unhealed or toxic feminines play out just as much as the unhealed and the toxic masculines.
They do.
And victimhood and all of that, and oh, I can't do anything to help myself, there's no point, what's the point? Well, you know, so we've got to kind of like bring ourselves back to ground zero and back to neutrality, find that way.
Mm.
And that really helps us to kind of move in the directions that we want to be in.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating. You wouldn't normally put the two together, would you? But as from having our chat, it's a big thing, isn't it? It can make quite a big impact on somebody's life. So for people that are listening now and would like some advice, what could you just give them as a bit of advice? Maybe where to start? Where would you start?
I would probably start with looking at your savings accounts first of all, because there's a lot of people kind of just got pots of money and they're not really optimizing or using it very well. You know, you need to be aware of the fact that with the financial services compensation scheme, there's only 85,000 of your money covered. You know, if the bank, you know, if the bank goes bust or whatever. And that's per financial institution. And what you find is sometimes the banks are all linked. So they only operate through one of those licenses. So you've got to be a bit careful, you know, you've got to be aware of that. Although if you have your money invested in national savings, you know, where you get your premium bonds,
Yeah.
because national savings it's all underwritten by the Treasury. So it can be a good place. Like we tend to use national savings because they're not subject to the 85,000. 100% of your money is covered within national savings. So it might be, for example, you've sold your house, the money's come in at your bank account, you might have 500,000 from your house sale. You obviously, if you kept it with just a high street bank, you'd only be covered for 85,000. Whereas if you put it with national savings, the whole lot will be covered for that period of time. Yeah. Because if the Treasury need to meet any of the liabilities, then just print more cash. And that's how that works. But we also need to be aware of inflation and how inflation has an impact on our interest rates. So if your net, so that after you pay the tax, or if it's an ISA, if the rate of inflation is, for example, which it has been before, 10%, and you're only getting 5%, as a net, you know, that's your tax-free interest rate, you're actually losing 5% a year.
Yeah.
And so you might say, well, how does that work? Because I've still got the same amount of money in the bank. But what it is the cost of everything that you're buying. Every time you go to Tesco's or Sainsbury's, everything you're putting into your shopping basket is increasing at a rate of 10% a year. So it's becoming 10% more expensive. But your savings pot in the bank is not increasing at the same rate. So you're able to buy less and less and less. So that's why people will invest, because the investments invest in other assets that are not interest rates, that make profits. And sometimes they outperform inflation, sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. But generally the trend over time, things like, for example, shares, they tend to outperform inflation over the longer term. So people will, but you need to have emergency funds, rainy day funds. You need to have your cash savings, but it might be that you put surplus monies and you think, right, well, I'll invest that and try and make a bit more money and try and outperform inflation. So if you go on to this great website that I use, it's called moneyfacts.co.uk. And it usually gives you all of the best buy savings rates and savings tables.
Okay.
So it's a bit like, it's not like Compare the Market, Meerkat, or, but it does give you the best buys. And it will also tell you whether the banks are operating with the Financial Services Compensation Scheme licenses. So that can be a really good place to go, just to try and check out where you can get a better interest rate, for example.
So you mentioned premium bonds. I mean, they've been going for a long time, aren't they? I remember my nan used to have like premium bonds. Is it still a thing then?
Yeah, yeah, they're great. We have a lot of clients that hold premium bonds.
And you get paid
Um,
out from them every now and again, don't you? Is that how
yeah,
if I remember rightly?
yeah. So they have like a general interest rate. I don't know what the rates are at the minute, but you can go onto the website and have a
Hmm.
look. And so
Yeah.
your winnings, in inverted
Yeah.
commas, your winnings are meant to kind of reflect a standard rate of interest. That's what they believe your interest rate could be. But there's also the potential to win like £1 million, so that to win the
Okay.
premium bond lottery. Um, so yeah, so they are good, and we do advise on them. We will sort of. I'm not saying, by the way, this is not to be construed as financial advice. So don't
Yes,
start going
we're just
racing
having
out
a
on
chat.
investing in premium bonds, because it might not be the right thing for you to
Yeah.
do, right? Because you might be better off with a different approach. But generally, there's not a financial risk, because again, the part of national savings.
Yeah.
So premium bonds may be good for you to consider
Yeah.
as in addition to
And
your
you
portfolio.
can get them, you can cash them in. Is that what you do with them?
Yeah, so you can cash them in, so they are accessible as well. So yeah, so premium bonds are good little holdings. National savings have got quite a few different types of bonds. They've got things like
Okay.
income bonds, and they used to, I mean, the one of the best savings accounts that the National Savings used to do, but now they do not, is issue index-linked savings certificates. They were great.
Oh,
Because obviously it was paying inflation at the same, it was paying interest at the same rate as inflation, but they tended to be quite expensive. So I think they pulled them a few years ago. I don't know if there's any issues around now, but it might be something that you keep checking in on to see
hmm.
whether there's any index-linked savings certificates on national
Yeah.
savings websites.
Oh, is that what you'd call them now? National savings rather than
NS&I,
bond? Oh, in SNI.
NS and I. It's like an ampersand, yeah, .com, I think it might be.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, brought back memories for the premium bonds. I didn't, well, I suppose I've not really been in my sphere of looking at them, but I didn't really think that they still existed, but obviously they do. If you
Well, I always find it amusing, because a lot of our clients will hold them. They'll have the full holding with Mr. and the full holding Mrs. And then there's like this ongoing rivalry between these married couples about who gets more winnings than the other one.
oh, right, I
Um,
suppose that happens,
so
does it?
yeah,
Is
try
that
and
just luck
avoid
of the draw
domestic.
then? It's a bit like is that just like the lottery, is it? You just may win that week or month or whenever.
Yeah, there's nothing, I don't think there's anything set in stone. I think some
Yeah.
people naturally win more than others. Again, it must be
Frequency.
the universe.
Probably the frequency. I might have to look into that.
I can't promise you anything, but if I had a magic spell for it, I would cast it. But unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. We don't do crystal balls and we don't do oracle cards with what I do. It's
Damn
all
it, I think you should
evidence-based,
introduce
guys.
them. Oh, just let me get my cards out. Ooh. This one's looking good. Can you imagine us, Rachel, with our pendulums?
Oh, we love, honestly, if you could do that, it'd be amazing.
Yeah,
But we'd
would
all
be
be
good,
doing it,
wouldn't
wouldn't
it?
we? We'd be winning the lottery every single week if we could pull something like that
Do you
off.
know how many times I've been asked for the lottery numbers
Oh.
and they just won't give them to me?
Have you ever won the lottery? Like,
No, I
well,
have had
like just a little bit.
clients. No, I have clients win the lottery. So when I do my readings, like my 12-month forecast, everything goes in there. So there's obviously one in there, a card that shows money or good news around money or windfalls and stuff like that. So I always mention that I have had clients win the lottery. So if they don't usually do it, might want to do it that month, or if don't forget to do it that month, you never know. But yeah, I've had people come back to me and say, you were right, I've won the lottery. I've had people win 5 grand, up to 20, I can recall. Whether there's been any more than that, I can't recall at the moment, but I remember the 21 because we was laughing about it. Sometimes it's 500 quid, some sort of amounts like that. But when it's mine, I go, oh, I'm going to win the lottery, do the lottery, nothing. Don't happen to me though. I do get money. When it says money, I do get it, but it's never the lottery. So I resigned myself to the fact that it's probably not going to be a lottery win that I'm going to get now. And I ain't putting that out to the universe. We can give it to me. I just don't do it. That's the thing. Because there's always a queue.
Well, I don't play it. I think you can do it on direct debit, actually.
Yeah, I know. We can do it online. That just come to me. I remember my dad saying that to me. You can do it online, you know. The only other time I think of it is when I'm in the supermarket and there's a queue, and I think, oh, that's a queue for lottery. I
See,
should
my
do that.
skeptical brain, like my mathematician head now starts to come in. Because I always think that I always see it a bit like gambling. Like if I've ever been to a casino, I hate those places so much. I don't enjoy that kind of atmosphere. Because I am naturally really competitive and I always want to win, and I've got to rein myself in. So I always see it as, if I go anywhere like that, it'll be like, right, I've got a budget and I've got to be prepared to lose this. I always see it like that. So I kind of see the lottery a little bit like that. But I always remember when I was working in a bank, I mean, this must have been like 15 years, 20 years ago or something. And this lady came in, and I felt so sorry for her, because she thought she genuinely won the lottery.
No.
And her husband was trying to tell her she hadn't won this lottery. But guess what? For her to receive her winnings, she had to pay them £1,000 in a transfer fee. And so she obviously worked in the bank. She'd come in and she's like, my husband won't believe me. Look at this. And we had to obviously impart this news upon her that it was unfortunately a scam. And I was so sorry,
Yeah.
you know, for obviously what, you know, how she must have felt about that. But I think it's really interesting, because you realise why our financial systems need to be regulated, because we can't have that, you know, effect on people. It's not fair, is it? So I think, you know, we'd all love to win the lottery. I wish I could make it happen for people, but if we just can't. We establish investments, usually have really good track records, but it doesn't mean to say that something won't happen next week that could send the whole thing into a headspin. So this is why you get these really boring disclaimers saying, you know, this performance is no guide to the future, because unfortunately that is actually true. And when we look at the timelines, for example, when we do our timeline planning, we know we've got infinite possibilities in front of us. What goes on internally within us attracts the next frequency.
Right.
The next step forward we take is a reflection of our internal frequency and how we move forward. So if you want to apply a spiritual concept to it, you could say, well, today you've got this great frequency about you, going to set up this amazing investment, and then next week it might all turn to whatever. So do you know what I mean? Because something might happen, it just, you know, and people are attracting into their lives that kind of thing. Now, I'm not saying it does work like that, but the entire universe is, you know, we don't know where we're going, we don't know what we're doing. So we have to, if we plan ahead, and this is what I get my clients to do, we plan ahead, we review every 12 months, and we say, right, is this working, or does it not? Do we need to fix it? Do we need to change it? What should we do? And it's really grounded what we're doing.
Yeah.
With the meditations, what I'm trying to do with them is just get people's mindsets to just change, so we can get rid of those self-limiting beliefs and narratives, things that are causing us problems, trying to get rid of that.
Yeah.
So then we can make better decisions.
That's right. Well, I think everyone should have a check-in with themselves every now and again anyway, to see if they're on track and how they're feeling, and what all their situations are. And I agree, and their financial as well, just to see if they're on track with everything. I have this saying that I say to people, like, the universe responds to what's really going on with you. So people confront it, can't they? Put on the smile and do on that. And well, the universe picks up on your frequency. So if you're really miserable or got a lot going on in your life that's not great, that's the frequency that it picks up on, not the smiley face that you want people to see. Yeah, i.e. going back to the Instagram thing. Sorry about that. A bit of a rant about that earlier.
But you're right though, Tracy, because people only show what they want you to see.
Yeah.
You know, some people will be a bit more honest. I mean, with the spiritual community loves talking about authenticity. You know, what does authenticity mean? Interesting, because I think that's just about owning and honouring your truth at that particular point in time, but it doesn't mean to say that you're going to feel like that next week.
Yeah.
Next week, something might happen in that period of time that changes what you believe your truth should be. And I think that everything that's wrong with this world at the moment is people battling against each other's truths. So I think we need to just take a step up from truth and look at wisdom, about how we deploy our wisdom upon or impart our wisdom upon others, you know, not our truths. We can really stamp all over people with truths, or we can help to nurture them. And that then obviously helps, obviously, their frequency and how they're moving forward in their lives.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, like really honouring and owning out what is integrity for us. And coming back to the book again, that's been something that's been quite a challenge for all the business owners. How do we bring our work in line with how do we, it's really hard because a lot of people say, well, take your 3-day mask off, and it's like, well, you don't understand. I'm both. I'm spiritual, and I'm also very, you know, I'm financial.
Yeah.
You know, I've got to be able to move in and out of boardrooms into the corporate world. I have to move between all of these worlds in a credible way that works for everybody. So I'm a bit of I wouldn't say I was a social chameleon, because that sounds like I'm not being authentic. I'm authentically
We're
making
all
sure that everybody
multifaceted,
feels
aren't we?
comfortable around me.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we're all multifaceted beings, and you've got to be able to navigate where you are and what you're at in your life, haven't you? You can't just be flatline on this all the way through. It doesn't work like that, does it?
Well, I mean, one day I might wear my floaty caftans. The other day I might want to put a pair of boutons on. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I ain't having anybody telling me whether I can wear a pair of heels or not. It's
Yeah,
like, don't
exactly.
come into my world and tell me I ain't spiritual because I've got my sexy heels on. If I want to wear these heels, I will wear them. You know what I mean? It's just like, I want to just do what I want to do because I'm free to do it. But I needed to be able to do that without the judgment.
I don't know if I'd look at you the same if you were sitting there with nose rings and tattoos and, I don't know, a great big crystal sticking on your chest. It's not to say that you can't wear those, but I don't know. I think there's a time and a place, isn't there, for
I think
stuff
it's
like
just
that.
how you feel really comfortable. I mean, I actually do. I mean, I've got my
I
crystal.
thought you was in.
It's always with me. It's 16 as jewelry. And I wear it all the time. And I've started actually going to my clients' houses where I used to wear the heels before. I'm now swapping them out for a pair of trainers, and it's like sneakers. And I'm going to my clients' houses, all very well educated people. Most of them are doctors. And I'm just saying to them, listen, I cannot walk in a pair of heels. Like, I just want these shoes on. Forgive me if you think that I don't look professional enough. Half the time they're laughing at me because they think, why are you even bothered? Like that we would even judge you in that way, because we're dealing with you because we know what your work, we've seen your work, we've seen you showcase your work. So I don't have to worry about that. But the point I think I'm trying to make is, like, I just want to be me. And I think that's what everybody should be doing now, is instead of trying to be an archetype or whatever it is, don't fall into the stereotype. People are way more complicated than that. You know, we are multifaceted beings. We've got so many different layers to ourselves, and we should really honor and celebrate that. Because that's what's beautiful about being human, is that you can be so many different things all at once. And being perfectly imperfect is just a wonderful existence. It's completely freedom. It's just total freedom, you know?
I think one of the things that sort of winds me up a bit about the coaching industry is, like, you've got to get your niche. You've got to nail it down. I'm not one thing. So, I couldn't nail it down. I do, but all different types of work really within my field. It all comes under spiritual, as I suppose, but I can't nail it down. I was like, it doesn't work for me. I don't want to be pigeonholed into one thing. So the people that are on my group, like on Facebook and that, I sort of do readings, I do healing, I do past life, I do bits and this and that, or I do funerals, or I might do a wedding. Do you know what I mean? That's like, or I might be in the gym, or I might be teaching yoga, or I might be doing something else. I don't want to be pigeonholed. I don't see myself. I don't see myself as one thing. I see myself as a multitude of things. I could do different things. I like writing books. I like doing art. I like doing all sorts of things. So I don't want to be in that little niche thing.
See, you can't put the Hathor in the box, can you? Don't even attempt to put the Hathors in their boxes because it won't go well for you.
Yeah.
And apparently there were 7 of them. So there's 7 different blueprints, that the Endeavours and the people from Temple of Dendera like contain. So on a spiritual level, just be known, never put the Hathor in a box because Tracy doesn't like it.
I like it. And that was like, that would, if anyone had tried a few coaches, and I just trying to be pigeonholed doesn't work for me. So I just, that I said to you before, in my own lane, do my own thing. It is what it is now.
And you do it so well, as
thank
and
you.
so does June. I mean,
June's
it's a total delight. I love being in the group because we just all get on really well, and it's not pretentious.
No.
You don't bark orders at people and tell everybody what they should and shouldn't be doing, and there's no ego either, and that's what I really enjoy. I really enjoy being free of the spiritual ego. And the thing is as well, I mean, I've been around the houses and back, and there are a lot of people with huge marketing campaigns who, quite frankly, Tracy and June are way more in tune than some of these other people who've got very, very glamorous Instagrams, and I can tell you that for a fact. Because
we don't
I've
even know how to work it.
a lot. And actually, I've got to say, I mean, there's one coach that I work with. She does actually have quite a big social media thing, but I do loads of work with her because she's just fabulous to be with, and I love her dearly. But there is another person who I do a lot of work with, and she's not very active on social media either, and you wouldn't know how amazing she is, because a lot of the time these people who've got really natural gifts and talents don't need to do AI images and talk about how amazing they are, and because half the time, to be fair, I think we're talking a bit of rubbish.
I think we're usually too busy doing our thing to be worrying about all that anyway. I don't really advertise, and don't think June does. We just have got our own private groups, and that's it really. I think we've both got Instagram, but neither of us know how to work it. We just, every now and again
I'll send you my Louboutins, Tracy. You can get them on, and we'll do a big branded photo shoot.
They are. Some of them are a bit random. I did take some off, but I was actually thinking of closing them down because it's just pointless stuff that I do. I just don't even know why I've got them, to be fair. Someone somewhere must have told me to get them.
So boring. Like, I'm like, oh my God. I've had to employ a social media manager because like everybody's looking at your Facebooks and everything. I don't even know why people follow me, because I don't talk about financial stuff on my page. Not at the minute anyway. I probably will do later on.
Have you got a little private group with your financial stuff?
No.
Perhaps you should get one. We all could need some help, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I nearly ran one for doctors, and I decided I didn't want that level of commitment because I'd have to be literally connected on social media. So one of my friends, she was like, well, I'm just going to do it instead. And now she's got like 18,000 people on her page. She's done amazing. I could have done that. I was chatting to her about it the other day. I said, I couldn't I'm so busy with the stuff that I've got going on that level of involvement
Yeah.
that I would have to have wouldn't really be coming from a place for me of authenticity, because I feel like I'd just be saying a lot of things just to try and like as a space holder. So I think for me, my work is more about on a personal one-to-one level. I mean, one of my clients, so amazing, like she's overseeing the UK defence budget. I've got really high profile clients,
Right.
but I don't share a lot. I think one of the things a lot of them liked sort of dealing with me is because I'm very, very discreet about the work that I do and who I work with. I do have a vouched for page where you can leave testimonials. And so I have used those, but only if people feel really comfortable. You know, I don't force people into it, and I certainly don't cold call them or send them loads of marketing materials, because I like people to feel like if they want to say something nice about me or give me a review, it comes from the heart, not because I'm on their case about doing it. That's why I've never particularly engaged with the coaching community that much, because I feel like they're constantly wanting your stories and they want you to talk about them all the time, and I'm just like, because I'm having to force this, you know. That's one of the reasons why I honoured the people I did within the chapter of my book, because I wanted to speak from the heart about the work that I've done with other people. And obviously the chapter of the book doesn't have you and June in it, because I didn't know you at the time when I wrote the chapter. I'll just make that clear. I would have wrote about Tracy and Jude if I had worked with them before I'd written the chapter. You know, but they came afterwards. So June's actually said I should write. She said you should write a book about your journey, because there's loads more to talk about that I've never really spoke of much. Because I just haven't got all night, have we? So
No,
maybe we'll do it again. We'll do part 3, 4, 5, 6.
Well, perhaps we can jump on when we've finished our work together and have a chat again.
That would be amazing.
Enlighten people, because they're probably intrigued. Because I know I've been asked recently, when are you doing your YouTubes again? Like, we watch you, we need you to subscribe. So there are people, they might not follow it, or I think you click the button, whatever. I'm quite new to YouTube, so I still don't really know what I'm doing, but you know, I know people do watch it and they do follow the episodes. So they'll probably be intrigued now to see how you are at the end of your journey. Well, we never get to the end, but a few stages along. That would be lovely. And also, like any of the other ladies that would like to come on and share anything that they're your friends, because they're probably going to see the podcast, aren't they? They can get into
they'd love to. They absolutely would love that.
They don't mind a bit of rambling on, because it's not structured.
Fun, isn't it? Yeah.
Whatever comes up, as you know, when me and June do them. So me and June have got a few probably in the pipeline as well that we're going to talk about, random stuff like our past lives and things like that. And of course, the thing I was telling you earlier as well, that we probably will unravel that as well at some point and share that with people, because that's a bit bizarre. But hey ho. But thank you very much for your time, Rachel. I really appreciate it. And we'll put your links and everything below the video. And once I've uploaded and everything, I'll share it with you, so you can share it with your friends as well. So thank you so much. And I look forward to speaking to you again in the near future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.